There is one vessel which is the workhorse of the Inner Sphere's mech forces, and has been for centuries. This orb-shaped hauler is the most common sight seen in large-scale operations, involving mechs of the Inner Sphere. While the prior video in this series covered the Leopard, a fast, tactical dropship required to reinforce friendly lines or deploy behind enemy positions, the subject of this video is a dropship that lands and unleashes armies from within. So let us explore this bowling ball of a spacecraft, the Union-class dropship. A medium dropship weighing in at 3,600 tons as of technical readout 3057, or 3,500 tons under the original dropship construction rules from Dropships and Jumpships, as well as other earlier sourcebooks. The Union-class dropship doesn't hold a particularly unique role in the universe of Battletech. This is by no means a bad thing, however. If mechs are being transported to embattled planets, or would-be worlds awaiting invasions across the Inner Sphere, they are likely waiting within the hull of a Union-class dropship, for the most part. The first choice of the most frequent size of mercenary units for the Succession Wars and beyond, as well as for most houses, the Union is a familiar sight to be seen, most assuredly. Unlike our prior entry, a dropship which sweeps into war zones to deposit soldiers and machines in what can be described often as daring operations, traditional dropships like the Union may find this more difficult. While it can drop mechs from low orbit, this is by no means ideal, and in particular it is best when the ground forces have already secured an area, allowing for it to land without much issue, or when there are pre-existing friendly factions available. This allows for the Union to safely deploy its mechs directly to the planet, and allows for its resources on board as well as other supplies to be available as a base of operations, or the forces which have been brought to the field. Beyond this, the Union can act as a mobile base for command on a planet, acting as a resupply, repair, and focal point for its deposited forces. Physically, the dropship has an upper and lower section in terms of how its bays and equipment are organized, with most of its repair-oriented equipment designed to go to its upper level, with battle mechs ready to be deployed on the lower portion for the most part. For its overall mission goals, the Union is good at most broad tactics. They are used frequently by houses to make raids, as well as by mercenaries and pirates. Unions are also used for large-scale planetary and interstellar warfare, being, as mentioned before, the workhorses which bring much of the forces to a planetary engagement, with mech forces as large as a full regiment in size spread across multiple Unions. In-universe itself, the Union is the most recognized mech-based dropship in the entirety of the Inner Sphere, despite it being a relative late arrival for the Star League, first appearing in the 28th century, in the last decades of the interstellar organization's existence. Originally produced in 2708 in the last century of the Star League, the Union-class dropship was not particularly innovative for its time, and was largely just an effective, reasonably armored and gunned platform to deliver a company of mechs. Being a design descended from the Manatee dropship in many senses, it was multiple generations and centuries newer than its prior, failed ancestor. Powered by a 630-ton V-250 interplanetary drive, the Union is not particularly fast in comparison to more nimble dropships, such as the Leopard or Leopard CV. This engine provides it with enough thrust to move at an average speed for a dropship. For fuel, this over 3,500-ton plus vessel has 215 tons of it. Every day of operation, it will devour just under 2 tons of that fuel as well. The Union's massive engines may help this enormous machine take off and land, so despite its odd shape, it has an immense amount of power to lift off world and back into the heavens. The Union has 4 overall bays, each with 2 doors on its massive frame. Bay 1 contains 4 battle mechs. Bay 2 contains 8 battle mechs. Bay 3 contains 2 aerospace fighters. And Bay 4 contains 74 tons of additional cargo. While the latter is not an excessive amount of space, each mech bay provides it with up to 150 tons of equipment, including the mech inside. And when factoring all of this in, the Union can carry hundreds to perhaps 1,000 tons of equipment for the mechs it carries on board, depending on its complement. This includes spare parts, ammunition, weapons, and other materials to keep its onboard army of battle mechs in the field throughout their campaign. Much like other dropships of this time, it contains 2 aerospace fighters in order to provide air cover for the dropship while it is approaching the planet, as well as during its entry to the atmosphere of that planet. After this, these assets can be used for recon or for military assistance to ground forces which have already been deposited. Firepower is something which is commonly expected for vessels like the Union class in Battletech, and this 3,600-ton monstrosity doesn't fail to deliver in this respect. It is a spherical ball of guns, in essence. But, to start with, it does attempt to keep itself cool by investing 27 tons into heat sinks, bringing its total to 90 overall. These are required to keep this enormous sphere cooled, especially as it begins firing its significant complement of weaponry. In the nose, the Union has twin LRM-20s, twin AC-5s, twin medium lasers, and a PPC. On each of its definable sides, so multiply all of this by 2, it has twin LRM-20s, a large laser, twin medium lasers, twin AC-5s, and a PPC. For its rear sides, it has a large laser and 2 medium lasers. Finally, for the aft, it has a single large laser and twin medium lasers. This kind of firepower is of course available to dissuade enemy fighters from engaging it, but also to make mech forces, particularly lighter ones, think twice before coming into its range. This is also why artillery is commonly used to knock out grounded dropships, rather than mechs when available. When it comes to protection, the Union is well defended physically with a total of 40 tons of plating covering its body. This yields it 640 points of armor. While this is by no means impervious, the weapons needed to break through this kind of plating are not typically available to most medium or light mech formations, especially if they are in smaller teams. When it comes to the crew complement on board the Union, it is meant to support a total of 3 officers, 5 enlisted, 6 gunners, and 28 bay personnel, and up to 14 mech warriors and aerospace pilots. In terms of their living arrangements, it actually varies wildly between different Union-class dropships. Some will have spacious accommodations and more than enough room and storage for all personnel. There are even those that have meaningful corridors and are able to allow multiple parties to move through at one time. And even have lounges as well as other public gathering spaces in more than one location. Others, often built much later or stripped down for various other reasons, such as attempting to add more storage or save on operating costs, will have significantly fewer lodgings, forcing crew to double up in rooms and reducing their personal space and holdings, and almost no main meeting area beyond one mess hall. The latter models are known to have a dreadful life support system that will operate just fine, apparently delivering what can be described as a unique industrial smell into the air, which is described as being stale. Still, unlike the Leopard, the Union is not a monolith in this respect. It varies quite a bit between when the ship was built, if it has been modified, and who is operating it. Despite its relative uniform outer appearance, its interior is far from it. The Union-class dropship is necessary for warfare in the Inner Sphere in every playable era of Battletech from the time of its introduction. It is well armed, reasonably armored, and carries within it the most common size of mech force for a full proper unit. It can resupply and repair the forces it carries quite easily. It's far from fancy and doesn't cover any specific niches as a dropship. It simply does what it needs to do. For crew accommodations, it is wildly inconsistent, with large numbers of variations and customizations as to how people live on board, and to what level of comfort that they will experience. Mercenaries, Pirates and houses alike call this their chariot, their vessel, or their home. There is a reason for this. The only vessel seen in the inner sphere which carries more mechs, and operates for even larger operations, is one which is far rarer, and more dangerous. At least 1-to-1. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I do updates very frequently, and you'll be happy with the content, I think. Also, a huge thank you to all the YouTube members for this channel. When you hit the join button and become a member, you take an extra step in supporting the content on this channel, and I can't thank you enough. Because this content is only possible because of viewers like you. And with that, I will catch all of you in the comments section below.